here's the prompt I have for you guys: is what musical artist or bands do you think should make their way into movies? Whether it's a musical biopic or like a musical or movie that just only has their music. Sort of like Across the Universe was a movie that had all Beatles songs, but it wasn't about the Beatles. I feel like I know what Chris would say.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's an obvious one for me.
I think I know what Chris would say. That's why I thought about using that one for myself, if I am thinking correctly, but I'm like, I think Chris might say that, but I'm going to agree with him.
I think we're just gonna rip the Band-Aid off. The Gorillaz, for sure, I think is criminally underutilized in movies. I think like everybody knows their main three hits, but once you really start kind of exploring their further discography, like he's made music that's simple and easy earworms on purpose, and I think that fits for movies really simply. So even if you're using it as like a backing track to a movie, I think that's easy enough. But they've attempted to start up so many different revivals of the cartoon show and trying to make some kind of living universe that you can like go into for the Gorillaz. They had like a
lore,
website.
Actually.
What's that?
They have deep lore for their characters.
Oh yeah, the lore it's obnoxious, to be honest with you.
So you would want a Gorillaz story about gorillas, like the characters, or would you just want a movie that uses their music?
In like the early 2000s, I want to say like 2009, 2010, somewhere in there, they had a website that you could go to that like was the most in-depth lore thing that you could possibly like get onto at that time. And I remember being like 12 years old, like obsessively trying to figure out how to get to the little island thing that was on the background of the website that you had to like click through or whatever, and like trying to do all these like really, really in-depth things just so I could learn like where their bassist slept, like or what like their bedroom looked like. Well, you saw it in Dare, and you're like, you saw the music video Dare, and you're like, all right, well, that's Noodle's bedroom that's in that video clearly. Who is this giant head that lives in her room?
Right.
This doesn't make any sense.
It's there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you want a Gorillaz movie that expands on the lore.
Yeah, I mean, I think if people
cool.
like fans have mashed up just their music videos before just to make like a long-ended story, and it's pretty entertaining. I mean, obviously as a fan, I'm like, whoa, this is cool, but they really did try to add layers to it, and I think that was the whole purpose of it, was to not only have a band but also like a media thing that you could use and like make something off of a comic or a show or whatever, but I think that idea is a bit novelty, and so it's probably never gotten off the floor for a reason. It's also probably really expensive to animate.
Yeah, let's go back to the 90s animation style.
Well, that's what, I agree with you.
Totally I don't like the 3D models that they have now. I like
it doesn't need to be that pretty, no.
Yeah, they probably... Actually, I think it's harder to do that now, is the older style, because that was all like hand-drawn and like very meticulous. Now everything's kind of like... I hate to say it, but it's very AI-centric, especially animation, but I think it'd probably save you money if it was the new way. But it would be less cool. Like what they're doing with Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse, that is a dying art. That's why it's taking so long.
That was what I was going to say, is like you have to go to one of the two extremes. Like you have to go to the Spider-Verse extreme where your animation is so over the top that it's incredible, or you need to go like real low scale, real like just save all your cash you possibly can to put into everything else.
It's funny that you brought up that website that was later on. There was this website that came out, I think with their first album, their self-titled album. Is it self-titled? Mm-hmm. Yeah, around like 2003, like the album with like Clint Eastwood and all that. There was this website that came out with that one too, where you could just click around and see the world of Gorillaz. And it was one of the scariest websites I had ever been on at the time, because I was so young. Like I was, I don't know, like 7 or 6 or something. And I was clicking around, and it was one of the scariest sites because the imagery was so weird and so dark, and you just like clicked around this whole website. You would just go left and right. You couldn't go up or down, and you like had a flashlight so you could just like highlight things. And I think there was like this like really creepy naked goblin guy, and I was like, what the hell? And, like,
his name's Murdoch.
It had like I
yeah,
remembering this wrong, but he had like a goblin, and I was like, oh my god. And I like
that's
clicked
Murdoch.
out of the website.
Yeah, that's Murdoch.
And I was like, it was one of the most scarring things that I remember. So it's funny that they still do those type of websites, because I remember seeing the first one, back in the day, and it's just freaked me out.
I mean, that was the Wild West back then.
They had websites all the way through Plastic Beach, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they did it smart. They do have a deep lore of everything going all the way back to their first album. So
you got me that almanac years ago. Yeah. I still flip through every once in a while. You got me like this big, giant, huge book. It's like yay thick.
Has a bunch of artwork and stuff.
Lore and lore and lore.
You showed me this. Is that where you got that from?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I think I agree with you that would be a really, really good project. You said you would want it to be about gorillas, like the characters.
I think you could use their music in more like that like of course, like yeah, definitely. I think for sure a gorillas based project would be great. But to further expand on the question, like I think their music's underutilized in media. Like I think that, everybody knows like the I'm happy, I'm feeling sad song, but outside of that, like there's other stuff that could be used, but I think people don't want to use because they're a mainstream band. Mm-hmm. Like putting a Metallica song in something is like, it's not really taboo per se, but unless you're using it real particularly, a real like, you almost become like a joke at that point, I feel like, and I think people are afraid to do that.
Mm.
Yeah, I feel like they're probably pretty expensive to use just because when people hear them, you're like, oh my God, it's gorillas.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But what about you, Jake? What artists or bands do you think should have a biopic, musical, or movies should just use their music more?
I think in terms of like a biopic, I think the artist Bon Iver has like a really interesting story, and like he has permeated mainstream music now, to where like he's made 2 songs with Taylor Swift. Going back farther, he worked on 2 Kanye West albums, and plus, like back in the MySpace days, he was the MySpace guy. I'm pretty sure, like the most successful MySpace artist, especially in terms of like indie music. And the whole story about him making his first album in a cabin while he had pneumonia after like a bad breakup or whatever.
Yeah, he was like almost dying.
Yeah, it's just a really fascinating story, and every time I hear him talk, like in interviews or on stage, like he just seems like the most humble guy, and he still lives in like Wisconsin, in the same town he grew up in. He plays at that festival they host every year, the Eau Claire Festival, and it's just like, I don't know, he's just a fascinating character, and I think he would make for an interesting biopic.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. That's an incredible choice. That he has been under the radar for a long time, and I think he just made his first late night appearance like a month ago, and like being interviewed, and he's been around since like 2008 or 7 or something, like around there.
Yeah,
when, like Skinny Love blew up and all that stuff.
Yeah,
his first album. Like growing up in Minnesota, I have like a lot of friends who are in the music, like do music as well, and they're like in the city, but they're like, they've ran into Bon Iver so many times just because of how close it is to where he lives in Wisconsin, and they go to Wisconsin a lot, so they're like, but they say that he's like a figure that they don't want to approach because they're like, oh my God, because he looks just like a normal man, but like they're like so well versed in his songwriting and everything that they're just like, he's like someone we don't even want to walk up to and be like, you're Bon Iver. Like, I don't want to talk to you. He's kind of like royalty up there. And so I think that's a really good choice. That'd be an incredible biopic, actually, because he's worked with so many people that you wouldn't think. Like, I guarantee you a lot of people didn't know he did music with Taylor Swift and Kanye West.
Yeah.
And a lot of other artists. That's a really good choice.
Tons of artists, yeah.
Do you think maybe that's who introduced Kanye and Taylor?
Jokes.
That's a really good choice. I like both your choices. Mine doesn't seem as exciting. Mine is it's just my favorite band, which is Kings of Leon. I think they would have a really good... It doesn't even necessarily have to be a biopic about them because they're kind of just like a generic, grew up in the church and then left the church and made rock and roll music, Southern rock. But I think their style of Southern rock would be really good for a movie that's just around the South, and they just integrate it kind of like an across the universe type of movie where they just only use Kings of Leon songs and base their story off the stories of the songs they've written. I just like the sound and how a lot of their albums don't ever sound the same. They got a lot of different sounds. So I'd choose Kings of Leon.
That's another band I agree with you is not used enough in media. Like their music's great. And
yeah, they only use like one song, I feel like, and that's like Use Somebody and stuff. But I would also like to hear Fred again make an entire soundtrack for a movie. where it
That would
doesn't
be
have
cool.
anything related to Fred again. He's just producing the music. He's just doing the score. I think that could be really like some kind of, I don't know. I think
They
he
should
would be
do
a
a
really
sci-fi
good
movie, like space.
Yeah, like that's the word I was trying to think of. It's like something like sci-fi, but not really sci-fi, but like on that like spectrum. I think
Yeah.
he can make some really good music. Even not that. I think he's just a really good producer. I'd be interested to see what he would do as a score.
It's that thing.
That is so fetch.
You love them and they know it.
How the hell you gonna get fired on your day off? Yeah, I was high when I said that. Tell him. What we're talking about is money. Real money. Amigo money. No dough, no show.
Hamburger, the cornerstone of any nutritious breakfast.
How? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, ain't
That guy in little gold.
Take it off, dickhead. I'm serious.